So in today's video, I'm breaking down 6 self-defeating thoughts that keep you stuck in codependent relationships. Because there are certain thoughts that make it really hard to feel good about yourself. So stay until the end where I give you tips on how to quiet that inner critic. But if you're new, my name's Michelle Ferris. I'm a psychotherapist and I love helping people create relationships that work. So codependency is basically a pattern where we look to others for that love and approval because we can't give it to ourselves. So this creates a lot of issues of low self-esteem and self-doubt because we don't know how to validate and trust ourselves. So we try to get our love by over-giving and over-helping, which ends up causing us a lot of stress, which is why it's so important to identify these thoughts. So the first thought is, I'm not capable. And this one I find laughable because most codependent people I know are incredibly capable. You're the ones who are making a difference in your family, in your community, with your kids. You're overgiving and you're overhelping. You're everywhere. And if this is you, I want you to really be able to look at this belief. And that's what we're going to talk about at the end of this video, is how you can really challenge that belief. Because saying to yourself you're not capable is definitely going to keep you stuck. And I don't want that for you. We also tend to do this because we get our value from what we do, not who we are. And if you relate to this, say me too in the comments. I'm right there with you. So the next self-defeating thought that keeps us stuck in codependent relationships is, I will always be alone. This one keeps us in toxic, unhealthy relationships because we assume that nobody else will want us or we're not good enough to attract a healthier person. But the truth is, you have survived hard things, and the ending of a relationship is not going to kill you. But part of what we do in our codependency is we make it this big, scary monster because we really believe, and sometimes we've been told by our toxic partner, that we're not going to be able to attract anybody else. And that belief just keeps us stuck in our codependent relationship. Another self-defeating thought that keeps us stuck is saying, I can't set boundaries because people will be mad at me. This one is another assuming the worst scenario because we think that other people are going to have this huge reaction to us saying no or doing less or really setting boundaries to protect ourselves from toxic behavior. But let's face it, most people in your life that love and care about you want you to take care of yourself. This includes probably friends, certain family members, maybe your kids. Most people that love you want you to feel good. And when we can't set boundaries, we're actually teaching people how to treat us. And we're teaching people that our needs don't matter as much as theirs, which really ends up creating toxic relationships, and I don't want that for you. So the next self-defeating belief that keeps us stuck in codependent relationships is taking care of myself means that I'm selfish. This also is false because, let's face it, if you grew up in a family where self-care was selfish, you learned to ignore your needs and wants for the sake of other people because that's how you stayed safe. But fast forward into adulthood, the more you give to other people and the less you give to yourself, that's the easiest way to wipe ourselves out and get into a lot of anxiety and overwhelm. So having that belief that taking care of yourself means that you're selfish really needs to be part of your recovery. So the next self-defeating belief that keeps us stuck is no one cares about what I want. This is really common, especially if you grew up in a childhood home where you were not seen or heard. Your experiences weren't validated and you learned to actually dismiss your own experiences because nobody else cared about them. But just because somebody didn't validate your needs doesn't mean they're not important. And part of codependency recovery is to really uncover those beliefs that nobody cares about what you want. Because often this is tied to not speaking up and not actually asking for what we want because we're assuming we're going to have a negative reaction. And most of the time when I used to do this in my early recovery and I asked for what I wanted, most people didn't care and they were willing to hear me. It was my own fear of assuming the worst that got in the way. If you relate to this, say me too in the comments. I totally get it. So the next self-defeating thought that keeps us stuck in codependent relationships is I'm not unique or special. This is often part of codependency where we feel less than and we compare ourselves to other people a lot. And we even compare our weaknesses to other people's strengths, which is a losing battle. Because let's face it, nobody is perfect, but you have unique gifts and traits that nobody else has. And part of recovery is being willing to uncover those things and actually start acknowledging them. Because what we need to learn is that our worth isn't tied to our actions. It's tied to who we are as people. But feeling like you're not unique or special is a common self-defeating thought in codependency. So now let's get to how can you quiet the inner critic. The first thing is you need to identify these thoughts, because sometimes we assume that they're right, so we don't identify them as being wrong or bad for us, but they are. The next step is challenging these thoughts. Are they even true? Do they belong to our family members? Do they even belong to us? Because a lot of these negative beliefs come from our childhood, so they really reflect how our caregivers were struggling, not who we were as children. Also, you can ask yourself, where's the evidence that actually I am incapable or I'm not enough? Because if you can challenge that belief, you're going to be able to work through it. And another way to do that is to reframe it as a positive, more kinder belief to yourself. For instance, if you say, I'm not capable, where in your life are you capable? Because I guarantee you could probably name a few things that you're good at. And that's how you can start to quiet that inner critic. And the last step is to practice self-compassion. Recovery is a journey. It's not perfect. You are going to struggle with your self-esteem at times. I still do at times, but it gets better with practice. And I talk a lot about this in my Healing Codependency course, where baby steps over time will make a difference. So when you start to identify these self-defeating thoughts, you're going to be able to start to change them. And the next step I want you to do is I want you to go watch my video on how to love yourself more. Thanks so much.